Okay, we got three true terrifying encounter horror stories animated. This video is done by MJV Animations. Shout out to them. Let's get straight into it.
It was 2016. I
Okay.
lived with my two best friends, who I'll call Jason and Andrew for privacy. We were all roommates in an apartment in the city while we finished up our last year of college. Because we
Okay.
were all in school and had jobs, we didn't often have a lot of free time. When we did, though, our usual activity that we all enjoyed was hiking, or I guess just exploring in general. Sometimes we'd go on trails, or just drive to a random town we hadn't been to before and walk around. This week, we all had Friday and Saturday off, so we wanted to find something to do on Friday night. Andrew
Okay.
had happened to hear from a friend earlier about this decommissioned factory on the outside of the city. It sounded cool, or
What?
interesting at the very least.
Why?
None of us had done something like this before though, so we were all hesitant. But in the end, we said screw it, and just decided to check it out. We
Why?
hopped in
Why would they do
Jason's
that?
car and drove to the edge of the city. We live in the Midwest, so
That
the
friend
city
wants you to
sort of
die.
abruptly ends and turns into
I
flat
forget
land that
subtitles.
goes on as far as you could see.
I don't think you can even see it, but
That was basically where this factory was. We didn't know its exact address, if it even still had one, but we found it on Google Maps using the satellite view. We parked a block away at a gas station, then got out and walked the rest. The
you
whole
just gonna
street to
park it
get
at
there
the
was
pump?
empty.
Like,
No cars or people anywhere.
yeah,
It
bro.
almost felt like the entire block was abandoned.
I go home after that.
The factory building was way bigger than any of us were expecting. It was massive, with railing-type structures all over the outside, and tons of graffiti in places I don't even know how people were able to get to. The chain-link fence had barbed wire across the top, but in several spots it had clearly been cut open and moved from others sneaking in. We
Okay.
crawled over and made our way up to the metal door at the front, which was already open.
That's not a good sign, bro.
As soon as we stepped inside,
My fault.
chills ran through me.
Yeah,
The
but
whole building was swaying, and the metal was creaking and groaning.
bro, I'd leave,
It
bro.
was
I'm not
windy
lying.
outside, so it made sense, I guess, but it still added to the eeriness of the place.
Nah,
All the
bro, I'm out
lights
of
were
there.
off, of
But yeah,
course,
we were in
so
here
our
cool.
only light was some cheap flashlights Andrew had lying around his house.
Cheap flashlights,
This
bro.
main room we were in was full of huge, rusted machinery and narrow pathways between them. We all stayed in that room and kind of just wandered around. Eventually, I wandered to the end of the room and into a hallway, but before entering, I checked over my shoulder and saw one of my buddies was not too far behind me. I couldn't tell whether it was Andrew or Jason because they were in the dark.
That is not Andrew or Jason, bro. I'm telling you, that is not Andrew or Jason. And first of all, why are they not all together? Did they really split up? Or like, bro, I'm telling you, as soon as I saw the door open or even just got inside, I'm out of there, bro.
By one of the machines, but I figured they saw me, so I was good to keep going without risking splitting up and getting lost. I started walking down, making it to another metal door and going through it. Just as I was walking into the next room and the door started closing, I heard footsteps coming down the hallway from the end I had just come from. Thinking it was Andrew and Jason, I kept walking and shined my light around the room.
Yo, first off, do you not sense anything? Like, why are they not talking? Why did you not call out to them? That you deserve whatever's happening to you because, you know, like, how are you not going to make sure it's actually them? I would have walked back up to them to make sure it was them. And if it wasn't, hey, cooked. But, like, in general, be like, yo, why are you so far back? Like, walk with me, you know? This person deserves whatever's coming to
It
them.
was Andrew and Jason. I kept walking and shined my light around the room. There were more machines, like a conveyor belt type thing, in the middle of the space. But along the ceiling was a walkway, or a catwalk, and I could see a ladder hanging down on the other side. As I was
Okay.
looking, I heard the door open and close behind me. I called out my friends' names and turned around to tell them what I saw, but when my light hit the door, they weren't there. There was no one. I almost thought I was crazy for a second, but I knew I heard the door open.
Plot twist: Andrew and Jason don't exist. Imagine. But like, I mean, okay. The only valid thing I could think of them not being right behind him is they're trying to prank him. You know, scare him. But even then, bro. Yeah.
Andrew? Jason? Their names rang across the room, but they didn't reply. I started carefully walking over to the door, feeling my mind start getting worried. I opened the door and shined my light down the hallway. It was empty. What the hell?
Bro, I'd
I
leave,
didn't
bro.
have time to think before hearing a slight crumble on the ground behind me. I whipped my light around. Standing maybe 6 or 7 feet from me was some deranged looking man.
Ooh.
He had long hair and a messy beard and these strange, glazed over eyes. He instantly started sprinting at me,
Ooh,
like he
yeah,
was
bro.
trying to tackle me.
Loki,
I backed
slam
into
the
the
door
hallway
shut.
and slammed the door on him,
There
then
you go.
sprinted for the other
There you go.
end.
Okay.
I could hear my buddies calling out to me, like they were trying to find me. I ran into
Okay.
the room and yelled at them to leave. We all ran out.
Yo, why they all
We
run like
made it
that?
to the fence
Chill.
and left. I explained to them what happened on the way back to the car.
Loki though, real quick, they're real ones though, because they immediately ran with him. They weren't like, "Yo, why are you running?" Maybe they did. They just cut it out, but you know, they didn't like try to stay. Respect to them.
Whoever that
But
guy
like,
was hiding in the building had followed me into the hallway and into the room where I was alone. Obviously, he was trying to wait for me to split off from the group before attacking me. What he really would have done, I'm lucky to have not found out. Since then, we haven't tried anything like that again.
I mean, he's probably just a squatter, low key. You know, decent story.
This was nearly 5 years ago from when I'm writing this. I was in high school at the time, and my best friend was a guy named Colton. We hung out most days after school and just found random places to go to hang out at. Anyway, this was right after our school let out for winter break, so we had a ton of time and nothing to do.
Wait,
We
winter break in
spent this whole
March.
day just chilling at his place and playing Xbox, but
Shouldn't it
we
be in like
eventually
December?
got bored. We felt like walking around or going somewhere. Now, our whole town always knew about this creepy church that sat at the end of a deserted road.
Oh my
It
god, bro! It's
was
always
kind of blocked
these
out by trees since they
deserted
stopped keeping up with it.
buildings.
It had been abandoned for as long as I'd known about it, but even though we always knew about it, it had never really come across our minds to explore it. When I was a kid, I was always terrified of it, but for some reason now, I was a little bit more intrigued. So, when me and Colton were walking around the edge of town and happened to pass by the deserted road to the church, we decided to check it out. At least to walk down the road and see what it looked like nowadays. And if
Sorry, I had to
nobody
check
else was
something.
there, maybe look inside. It was already dark out, but the moon was bright enough for us to still kind of see where we were going. We also had our phones on us in case we needed a flashlight. The
Yeah,
road
'cause why
was
wouldn't you?
awful. It was cracked and had thick vines and bushes growing between the pavement. By the time we got to the end of it and looked back, we couldn't even see the street we'd just come from. Looking at the church, though, it was
Hmm.
way creepier than I'd remembered. It looked like the forest had engulfed it. Even the fence going around the
Like, low key, why
courtyard
is it
was
there?
almost unrecognizable.
Like, honestly, though, even when the church was still up, why would it be there? I mean, there's probably obviously it would have been kept clean with all like the grass and weeds and everything there, and like maybe even the trees were kept neat and like the pathway, whatever. But like, why is the church like? Why do you have to go that far to go to a church? I mean, maybe it's like old though, so maybe that makes sense. But yeah.
Because it was drowning in the tall plants that covered it. We made our way through a broken section. It was very quiet as we approached the church. We didn't see any lights or hear anything to indicate anyone else was here, so we walked up to the large entrance door and pushed it open. The sound it made was like bending wood, creaking and scraping its way across the floor. It echoed through the whole room. Both of us stayed at the doorway for a minute and just looked from there. What was really odd, and also kind of creepy, was that the whole room, full of rows of benches, looked almost untouched. There wasn't any debris anywhere, or even graffiti like you'd expect from an old place like this.
I mean, it's a church
I
though,
stepped
so.
in, and Colton followed behind me. I slowly walked down the aisle, just looking around at everything. Each step we took echoed throughout the vaulted ceilings, but when we got closer to the end, there was a sudden thud. It rang through the whole
Yeah,
church.
out
Both
of
of
there.
us jumped and quickly got our phone flashlights out. We couldn't tell where it came from, though. The sound kind of took over the whole building and echoed all around. We stood still and moved our lights around, looking for anything that had caused the sound, but we really saw nothing. Colton thought he saw another room closer to the entrance, and maybe something had fallen over in there.
Maybe.
Regardless, we kept exploring. I
Bro,
walked to
why?
the end of the
Like,
hall where the podium was. I stood up there and looked back down at the way we came. It was so dark by the entrance, even my light couldn't reach that far. After a minute, Colton said he wanted to check out the other room, so we both headed over there.
okay. I
On
thought
the
you were gonna
side
split up.
wall was a door. I opened it and shined my light in. From just a quick look, I couldn't tell what the room was. We walked in and looked around. There were chairs stacked up against the wall and a bunch of boxes everywhere, like storage or something.
Okay.
While we were in there, we heard a subtle sound. We both stopped moving. It was a light thump, and then another. It sounded like someone walking down the aisle we just came from.
Oh my god. Okay. Plan of action right here. Turn the lights off. Maybe. Unless it's like if it's pitch black. But like then it's like the light makes it worse. But honestly, whatever's in there or out there, if you just stay in the room, make sure that's the room or like there's no other entrances. That's like easy. You stay in the room, and if it comes in, y'all team up on it, bro. Like, come on. Still scary though.
Both of us froze up. The sound was coming from the podium area, walking down toward the entrance. We could only see out the thin crack in the doorway of the room we were in, but we stared at the darkness out there and waited as the sound got closer. Then, for a split second, someone
Ooh.
crossed through the dark and out the front entrance door. The
Well,
footsteps then stopped, and we held
if
our
it,
breath
it's
as we
gone then,
waited
Loki.
before we heard the door creak closed.
You're
We looked at
cooked.
each other in fear. Neither
You're
of us
cooked.
knew whether to try running away, or hide, or what to do. We ended up just waiting in fear for several minutes until we thought whoever it was had left the area. Then we sprinted out of the room and out the entrance. We didn't stop running until we got down the deserted road and onto the street. We don't know who was in there, but they came from the end of the church that I had just been at. There was no doorways over there, so they had to be hiding or something,
That's
somewhere
crazy.
right next to me. That is, if it even was a person. At this point, years later, I can't even say anything is for sure.
Yeah. Okay, that was pretty decent. That's definitely like a ghost spirit. Has to be, bro. Like, there's no other way. Because even if, again, if it was another squatter, they just, I don't think they would do that. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a squatter. But like, hey, bro, whatever. On to the next story. These are decent.
This was only 2 years ago.
Oh, damn.
In our town, there was this one house that had been abandoned for I think about 2 decades. It was an older place, nestled away in the trees, and after nobody would buy it, everyone just forgot about it. It slowly got
My God.
covered up by the wood.
Again, bro, with these freaking deserted buildings. I mean, I know that's probably the point of the video, but like, why is it always in a different spot? But I guess that's the reason why it's deserted. Duh. But like, how does it do that? Like, why is it alone or like in a different spot? I don't get that.
Woods and left to rot. I was always interested in these types of places and loved to explore them. In one random afternoon I had off work, that's exactly what I did. I walked there with a small backpack and a
Uh,
flashlight.
you're alone.
Usually I'd go with friends, but this house was so close by and seemed less significant than other
That's
places we'd been to, so I didn't bother.
Well. At least
The
the other two
driveway
had
going
other
into the
people.
woods was almost completely gone. Grass had grown over the gravel. I marched my way through it, eventually taking my flashlight out so I could see better. The house was deeper into the woods than I'd remembered. I felt like I walked for 5 or 6 minutes before getting there. It was an
That's a
old
decent
wooden
walk.
home,
I'm not gonna lie.
built before garages were even a thing. I guess it kind of looked like a large 2-story cabin. I walked up to one of the front windows, which was broken, and leaned my head through it. I listened to the inside for 30 seconds to make sure I was alone. Then, after hearing nothing, I went to the front door. The door was unlocked and already slightly cracked open, so I just pushed it wide open and walked in. The inside was decaying all around.
Oh, you see that
Disturbingly, there
painting?
was still stuff in here from whoever owned it all those years ago. The living room had an old sofa,
Again,
all
that's another situation or like a sign. Like if you have a deserted place, it either has all of its stuff still there or it's clean or like clean in terms of like there's nothing on the ground. I don't know which is worse. Um, they're both pretty bad. I don't know, man. I wouldn't be in this situation because I wouldn't go. At least not alone. For sure, I'd bring 10 people, bro. Like I'm not joking. I'd bring 10 people. Like
torn up and dusty, and there were several picture frames that had fallen off the walls and shattered. I walked through the first floor, looking at all the left behind things, curious about what I'd find out about this
I guess
place.
it depends on the building.
The floor was small, though. After just a minute or two, I went upstairs to the second floor. The stairs were creaky and shaky. I'm surprised they hadn't caved in already. The second floor had a hallway with 2 rooms. One of the doors was open and the other was closed. I looked
Again,
into the
another
open
sign. I
one.
don't know.
The room was empty, which
Why
was
is it
strikingly
nighttime?
different
Like,
from downstairs. I stepped in and moved my flashlight all around, but was interrupted when I heard a thud below me. My heart immediately started racing. It didn't sound natural, like a noise the house would make. I hurried down the stairs and waved my flashlight all around.
why would you do
The
that?
house was so quiet now, and I didn't see anything moving that could have made the sound. Having that bad gut feeling, though, I told myself I should just leave.
Yeah,
Usually with my friends I explore with, we always say at the first sign of anything sketchy, we leave.
decent
Being
rule, but
alone, I definitely wasn't staying.
yeah, why'd
I
you go alone
quickly walked
anyway?
down the hallway, still moving my flashlight all around.
Door's gonna open.
But when I got to the front of the house, the door was shut. I had left it wide open. I hurried up to it and pulled the handle, but it didn't move.
Of
It
course.
was locked or bolted closed on
I
the
don't like to think.
outside.
Go through the window, bro. I
I
don't care. Go through
immediately
the window.
started to panic,
Go through the
knowing
window.
someone else had to be here with me and just locked me in. I ran over to the broken
Thank
window
you.
and jumped out.
Good.
I didn't see anyone as I sprinted into the woods, turning my flashlight off and staying off of the path. My heart was still racing as I
There's still
walked
more.
between the trees, but then a light came from ahead. I was confused and moved behind a tree. It was a red and blue light
Police?
flickering at the end of the driveway. There were 2 cop cars cutting through the thick grass and driving toward the abandoned house. They passed by me, rushing to the front of the home as I remained hidden. Something in me knew that they weren't there for me. I watched for a minute, then ran out of the woods and back home. I don't know who else was there or why the police were rushing toward the house. I tried to find out more
Well,
information on it in the coming weeks, but never found anything released to the public. Whatever was going on in there, or whoever was in there, must have been pretty bad. I'm lucky to be here right now.
not really. Like, whatever. Bro, why can't I pause? Whatever. It was probably just like someone running away from the cops. That's like the best case scenario, honestly. That really is. But all three stories were definitely creepy. Again, they all like again, best case scenario is just like some dude, which is still bad. That's still scary. But it's not like what else it could be, But anyways, that was three true terrifying encounter horror stories animated by MJV Animations. Link to the original video in the description. Like that video, like this video, subscribe.